of that charming Markle nose of yours being put severely out of joint, and not at the hand of a surgeon this time. It is your nose out of joint, my lover. That's what it is. And because she's rumoured to be a fantasist, with not so much head in reality, she spun it for herself. And I don't say this with malice. I say this with some sort of pity, really. She can't handle the fact that she was not proffered this apology that she and her husband demanded, that everybody didn't bend and submit to her want and whim, and
Hey everybody, you're here. I don't know what's good. Let me see. Michael Lonsky. I'm good. It's a gorgeous day. Can you see it? Can you see it? What a gorgeous day it is. It's a day that we must be thankful for. We must be thankful for. That's what it is. Yeah, low humidity, low tension, low volume, low expectations. GTII right now is 163, and I don't think that's bad at all. It was as high as 168. They ain't winning. They're not dead yet, of course, but they ain't winning. Let me just see. GNS, before you ask me, is at 114. VOCL is at 12 cents. GTII is at 163. I moved Keith Lathrop. I moved from TD to Fidelity and switched back to TD 1 week later. Wow. 88. It's pretty hot. Hey Heidi. Heidi ho. Heidi hi. Fire warnings. What's this with blowing up an 1,800 cattle? It's almost like our country is subject to sabotage. Let me go to the beginning, because it's a very good place to start. Noblesse oblige. Good afternoon. Mike M., Derek Edelman, Michael Lonsky, Keith Lathrop. Allo, Jesse, allo. Started a transfer today to move all my GTII from TDA to Basamo. Thank you, Linda Telly. He's asleep. He's quite a content boy in his dotage. Thank you, Matt K. Edward Barona. Thank you, Edward. That's awfully nice of you. You don't have to call me Mister. You can call me Sir. Pete Tong, hey. Brendan and Ella's Fun Adventures. What's up? Yeah, Michael. It's just one of those days you got to say. Imagine, why did people live underground thousands of years ago? Was it because they didn't have a climate like this? Amazing. It's just amazing. Money settles tomorrow. Buying. That's good. All right, I'm catching up. Hi, Heidi. Heidi. Oh. Brendan, are you going to meet the MMTLP? I don't know what that means. Meet the MMTLP. Wartime. GTI, one team, one goal. That's right, Girth Mike. Save pop culture. Why? No, I'm just kidding. Pop culture is great. Been that way for a while, yeah. Hoo-ha, line of all. All right, you guys. We're all doing great. Eddie Eagle. You don't have to call me Mister. The whole world calls me Hank. So, Hank, why do you smoke? Why do you roll dope? I don't know. I'm just carrying on a family tradition. That's great. That's great, Dan A. Transferred my Fidelity to E-Trade. Yeah, E-Trade I think is really good. Pete Pang, I always get this right. Panagiatis. It's not. I know I didn't get it right. What's up? Okay, mister. You don't have to call me sir or mister. It's just, I've got a couple more years on you, babe. That's all. Oh, Heidi, he means Anna Trades is coming to D.C. I hadn't heard that, but I will meet up with them. I will definitely meet up with them. Heidi, Twisted Game Logic. No, I'm not high. That's not ever been one of my things. Hey, BBJ. Hi, William. Appreciate your live streams, even when you fill it with redundant nothingness. It's stress release to listen and get some info. Thank you. I've got a couple more years on you, babe. That's all. I've spent more time with my back to the wall. It's not that I'm older, it's just that I'm wiser. And I've got a couple more years on you, babe. That's all. 161, 163. All right, so anybody signing in right now, it's 2:30. We're going to put this video up later as a recap of GOLQ and Logic and an interview with Brent. So if you're signing into this, just move forward an hour because he comes on in 1 hour at 3:30. In the meantime, we're going to talk about all manner of things, including Logic and GOLQ, and we're going to try to collect 10 perfect questions to ask the CEO of GOLQ, well, temporary CEO of GOLQ and CEO of Logic, Brent Son. So that's the agenda. Welcome aboard. Time to go to the dentist. Is there a vocal call? Do you want me to listen to it? If anyone wants me to listen to it, I'll listen to it. My let's see, DeHobler. I don't know what's going on specifically with VOCL right now. It's the oddest situation I've ever seen. You can't accuse the CEO of hyping, because he kind of talks his own stock downward. But I support him. I support the stock. I would not chase VOCL in terms of buying. If you see it run, let it run. It'll come back. In my judgment right now, there's always a risk you miss out. The only things I would be interested to hear is when are the record dates for the distributions. But otherwise, I think the stock is going to come down, up, down, down, down. I'm not saying don't buy it. I think you should buy it strategically. If you don't have a position and you want to be in it, maybe buy half and then just keep bidding for the rest at lower prices. I just think they're going to be able to drive it downward over the next X period of time, up until a record date. And I don't know those record dates. So that'd be one reason I'd listen to that call. Jeremy knows what he's doing in terms of back office and corporate action. I think he's getting a lesson, because he just, some people have to learn by having it proven to them. He's getting a lesson that either Jeff Easton and Philip Vallier and Kurt Kramer's got a few licks in there too, but he's getting a lesson that it's either them or it's their associates, maybe through Benchmark, maybe through some other participants in the last offering. They do know how to do it, and they are smart enough to crush a stock. And anyway, I think they're going... I don't really know how to predict prices on it, but I wouldn't be surprised if they drive the stock under 10 cents before it really starts to make its run. There are a lot of positives in VOCL, with Jeremy being one of the key positives. I think he's smart. I think he will learn quickly. I think he needed to see that these people are evil and they don't care about him or his shareholders. I think he couldn't believe it at first. But the distributions and other corporate actions, I think, are going to catch out a massive, massive counterfeit short position in VOCL. Let's see what GTII is doing. Somebody just said that GTII is very low volume, and it's accurate. It's 306,000 shares right now at 162. Bid is 160, ask is 163, and I don't see this as a bad day for us. It would be great if there were further follow through on buying, but who's to say it doesn't come in at the end of the day? This isn't a win for the shorts. It's not a win for the shorts. So we're up 4 cents. We're up 2.5%. Hey, Toe Stones, how are you? 2 stones. Yeah, Morgan Stanley. I like Morgan Stanley, and anyway, I don't think Morgan Stanley. I don't know. They all do the same crap. They all do the exact same crap. Yesterday I forgot to finish my thought because maybe. Do I have something wrong right there? This perfection, I hate to have it marred by whatever that is. Um, you know, when I was talking about Grandma Kelly yesterday, how she has 1,000 shares of Exxon, and the street used to make, that's $1 million. I made up the example, $1 million, and they might have wrap fees, 1%, 1%, 1%, and then there's the trading and the stock loan. So on that million shares, she might make, if it went up 10%, she might net out 75 grand over the year, but the Wall Street would make about the same, maybe more when you add in some of the trading. So it'd be 75, 75. 75 to Grandma Kelly, 75 to Wall Street. But what I forgot to mention, just because I got bored really, is when they just say it's 1,000 shares of Exxon, when they rehypothecate those shares and then do it again, and then do it again, she still makes 75 grand on her account in that first year. But by rehypothecating twice, they're going to make 3 to 4 times what she makes, Wall Street. And if they rehypothecate it one more time, basically, Wall Street is making the off of her $1 million seed account that is the basis of this pyramid, Wall Street's making $1 million a year. And it's all just fraud. And it's based on the fact that people don't ask for their shares. That's the one thing. If we weren't trying to participate in what we legitimately expect to be a squeeze, we could just start taking all our shares out of the system. And what does Wall Street have? Ultimately, that's how to hurt them where it counts. They lose everything. The system is so leveraged that the poor Grandma Kelly's account is probably supporting 10 to 1, 15 to 1, 20 to 1 accounts, which then give Wall Street more income per year than her basic real account. And it's for the theorists out there of you can probably give me all sorts of analysis, but to this little mind here, it sounds like margin account, and it sounds like margin writ large, and it works while there's liquidity pouring in, low interest rates, everyone wants to save the banks, everything's growing. We have the most popular president in the history of the United States, 81 million votes, everything looks glorious, but when it turns around, margin, live by the sword, die by the sword. And I think what's coming to Wall Street might be a little bit disappointing. All right, so it's 2:42. Chris, if this doesn't squeeze by May 2034, you're out. There's no, as far as I know, there's no ham call, but I'm not going to be able to listen to the ham call here because, but as far as I checked, I don't think there is one today, because at 3:30 today, we're going to have Brent Son live. He's going to give an update on Logic, the Aubrey SPAC deal, the potential, which looks like a certain acquisition that's coming for Logic that could add about 75 cents a share in value, maybe a little bit more. He's going to talk about GoLogic, and then he's going to take your questions. Hey, Moody Waters. It's gorgeous here today. Absolutely gorgeous. I don't know how they do it downtown. For the most part, we don't have horrible insects. So you can sit outside and you sold all your apes and bought GTI 161. Obviously, I can't give you specific advice, but I think in general, as a thought process, that is a great move. These guys in GTII really seem trapped. So what we're going to do at 3:30, I'm going to get Brent on the phone. We're going to put him on speaker so you can hear him. I assume you can hear me. I think you can hear me. And then we'll go through the various points he wants to go through. It's really exciting. I read the news. I heard the news today, oh boy. I read the news on GOLQ, but let me just read the Logic news from March 22nd, just so you have it in your head, because your questions will get answered. If you have 10 of them, and I like them, I'm going to pose them, we'll get the answer. Do you know, if a panther calls, don't answer. Okay, this was March 22nd, and this was an update on Logic. A leading... Are you all right? My dog just fell down the stairs. Move this away. Let's move this away from the stairs. There you go. So sorry. Poor guy. You're such a good boy. You're such a good boy. You're such a good boy. I'm sorry. Gosh, he was asleep, and I guess he rolled over. He just fell down the flight of stairs. But he's okay. Old boy. I hope you didn't hurt yourself, Lucky. Come on. Come over here. You can come over here. Come on. You can say hi. Come here. You can say hi. Are you all right? He's a little befuddled. Gave an update, and Brent said, we have been preparing to report our 2022 results along with a detailed corporate update, stated Logic CEO Brent Son. However, given the disclosure of a number of positive events over the past week, this is back at the end of March, including the Form 4 filing of my large purchase of shares, we would like to take this opportunity to address some of the investor questions we have been receiving lately. Ionic Share Purchase Agreement. Logic received a $3 million investment from Ionic Venture under a $40 million share purchase agreement initiated in March 2022. On March 16, 2023, both the Ionic share purchase agreement and the associated S-1 registration were mutually terminated. That was March 16th last month, so it's about a month ago. Given the company's progress over there, it's okay, Lucky. I pulled it back. He's nervous to sleep again. I don't blame him. Given the company's progress over the last several months and positive outlook ahead, Logic Management believes it was in the best interests of shareholders to eliminate the funding program. Of the remaining shares held by Ionic, 2,255,000 shares were purchased by Logic's CEO Brent Son, with the balance purchased by a group of private investors. Great news. You get rid of that toxic nightmare. Q4 financials, that's last quarter. The company reiterates that it expects to report revenues of approximately $7.5 million for the fourth quarter ended December 31, 2022. That's $7.5 million for the fourth quarter, increasing more than 83% sequentially versus the third quarter, and up more than 9% over fourth quarter a year ago. A major new consumer product client, which was onboarded in November 2022, is transitioning to Logic's programmatic advertising platform, which would generate high margin revenues. The company continues to estimate that Logic's annualized revenue run rate now totals $40 million. Next point, DataLogic, GOLQ, the subsidiary SPAC merger. The company believes it is making good progress toward the completion of the SPAC merger and remains confident in completing a successful transaction. Logic and the SPAC are processing the second round of comments they have received from the SEC regarding the merger and regarding the S-4 filing. The company is also in the process of completing the audit of DataLogic's 2022 financial results on a standalone basis. The audited results will be added to the Form S-4 and submitted to the SEC along with the company's response to those comments. The post-GOLQ SPAC plans. The company believes the current struggling IPO market, initial public offering market, increases the attractiveness and value of public reporting companies like Logic for potential merger and acquisition candidates looking to gain access to the capital markets. The previously announced merger, which exclusively offered to the PrivCo or PriveCo, announced in November, expired on December 31, allowing Logic to pursue negotiations with other potentially more favorable private companies looking to go public. You're going to hear about that today. The ideal target would enable Logic to qualify for a listing on a senior stock exchange, along with my senior dog. There, he went back to sleep. He's a brave boy. All right, the next point of this news announcement. Strategic M&A activity. Over the last 7 years, Logic has pursued an aggressive strategic M&A program with 2 acquisitions under the DataLogic, which were accretive and have continued to scale. All this lingo to my ears is grammatically incorrect, but I think you understand what they mean. Battlebridge, for example, secured a major customer win late in 2022, which is contributing significantly to revenues, with this driving a substantial margin expansion. The current industry environment continues to present accretive merger and acquisition opportunities that could contribute to significant revenue growth if completed. Given the quote-unquote target-rich landscape, the company is evaluating several potential acquisitions which could create an exciting platform for customers, strategic partners, and investors. According to Suen, we are in active discussions with targets engaged in ad tech, direct-to-consumer sales, specialized digital advertising, and performance marketing. All are generating revenue growth and are break-even to profitable, cash flow positive. I added the last part. If such a transaction would be completed, we would expect the combined scale to propel our growth exponentially in 2023. So that's the news on Logic. That'll set the platform for our discussion with Brent. And I would like to quickly give you, God, I used to like it when they didn't have all this pop-up advertising. Okay, so just quickly, I read the one on GOLQ to you yesterday, so I'm not going to read it again. The stock is $1.60, which is problematic for the uplisting to the NYSE Associated Exchange. Now, GOLQ is going to host an investor call, they announced today. This is new, so let's read it. I didn't read this to you yesterday. Here it is. So GOLQ is to host an investor call April 20 at 4:30. The company is to discuss recent M&A activity, NYSE American Uplist 2022 spin-off share distribution, and the 2023 outlook. GOLQ, a U.S.-based global provider of fintech and consumer data analytics, will host an investor call on Thursday, April 20, 2023 at 4:30 Eastern Time. Management plans to discuss with investors the company's recent M&A activity, its plans for a listing on the NYSE American Stock Exchange, and its 2023 outlook. Date, time, ID, Zoom. During the call, management will provide further details for shareholders who received shares in GOLQ as the result of GOLQ's spin-off from Logic last year, and which are currently restricted from sale due to regulatory requirements as described in yesterday's update press release, which is the one I read to you. As described in the update, all restricted shares of GOLQ issued in the 2022 spin-off distribution are not currently eligible for restriction removal, since the company has not yet met all SEC requirements to permit such removal, which, by the way, parenthetically, might be just fine, because you're going to hear today there's a major acquisition on the horizon for the post-SPAC DLQ that might make it far more attractive to hold on to those shares rather than sell them. And for those you guys who have bought GOLQ, if you have, outside of this distribution, none of this is completely relevant. other than the news of the acquisition. The company plans to issue another update press release when such eligibility becomes available, as well as provide instructions for how shareholders may obtain the required legal opinion from the company's counsel for submission to the transfer agent and the removal of restriction. That's excellent. To be able to get that from the company directly will save you at least $2,000 or $3,000. The company continues to encourage shareholders to support its plans for the uplisting to the NYSE American and the completion of pending acquisitions, both of which require the shares of the company's stock to be trading at certain levels. For questions regarding the upcoming call or the 2022 spin-off share distribution, please contact Investor Relations at GOLQ@cma.team. I won't read it out. You can find it under the news story on Yahoo. So now it's 3 o'clock. Let's check some prices. I'll read what you guys have been running, and we'll get ready for this at 3:30. GTI 162.5, 308,000 shares. No volume. Let me check Twitter to see what's happening. On the hamster's tweet, so on his feed. Okay, so Ham 3 hours ago wrote that GTII submitted corporate action requests for this dividend on March 17th. It's been a month. FINRA. It is not that hard. That's what he wrote. He said, why chase, accumulate? It's a nice and slow day. Enjoy. No more charts. No more wild swings sideways. Never chase. Just sit and wait. 3 hours ago. Look at who is the crooks in MMTLP. GTS Securities, Canaccord Genuity LLC, it's unbelievable. It's everywhere. Ham wrote 3 hours ago, how do I know? Lawyers I talked to who deal with FINRA were told that a person quit, left for a better job. Zero talent there. Kids, I guess, have no idea about fraud. He wrote 3 hours ago as well. He wrote the loophole. Enjoy how they naked short and steal your dollars. Trash bag. They could care less about your family. Traders. Want more proof? NASDAQ VP Tom Gira voiced concern over a segment of market-making activities and firms. Quote, our concern is that people are registering as market makers just to get short sale exemption. Can you say no shite, Sherlock? Four hours ago, he said Ham just found out there's 125,000 to buy at $1.60. Might not be GTII though. Maybe it's finger. Okay, so that's about it. And then he wrote, the turnover at FINRA is huge. They are all quitting. The place is a mess. And then this is good advice to all of you from the hamster, from the hammeister. The ham? 4 hours ago. To stop volatility is how I described it. Next step is, if you wish to buy, let's say, for example, bid for 7,500 at 160, buy 1,250 shares at the offer, and bid 1 penny below the offer for 1,250. That way you buy some and bid for the rest. It's not financial advice on his part. Okay. Let me go to your comedy jokes. Okay. There's Perry Cuomo. No ham call today. Michael Lonsky, I'm not going to repeat that out of trying to keep the calm, but I hear you. Good afternoon, Moody Waters. Was good in Scotland today. All right, Frank McLean. Ach, no. I will buy shares tomorrow. I think I'm going to sell Jorge. I'm going to sell all my shares, buy GTI, but it's just waiting for update on the dividend. Well, look, the dividend is supposed to be approved now. It's out of the control of the company. It's in the hands of FINRA. And my guess is the record date remains tomorrow, so we might hear today. I looked earlier. It's not there. Hey, Jenny, Rebecca. Oh, he's asleep now. But he just fell down, let's see, I don't know, 8 stairs hard, wood, down to the concrete base. And it was just feet over ears, over belly, over back, boom, 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 boom. And he got to the bottom and he was dazed and confused for so long. Woman, it's not true. I wanted a woman, never bargained for you. He's fine. He doesn't even remember it. Yeah, he's all right. I moved his little pillow back from the edge. That was kind of my mistake. He must have just rolled over, had a dream or something. All right, yo, good job. Brutus. A2 Brutus. I found a duck with a broken wing at the edge of a lake. We named it Lucky. Then we barbecued him. Yeah, he landed okay. He landed. Thank you, Manuel Ray. The other duck was floating in offshore. We named him Bob. Did you find a third one with no legs and no wings and name him Matt? I know, Chris. Poor Pinche Piero. I know, Big Al. Yeah, I know, Chris. It's he can't really jump anymore, and he gets all excited. He's still youthful in his head anyway, but he's actually had trouble hopping up on a curb Most of the time he's okay, but every now and then, I don't know. There's no news, Mr. Inappropriate, on the dividend. I checked today. There's no update, but it's with FINRA. So the company's done everything the company can do. They've answered the questions, simple questions. They responded. So FINRA just has to say, all right, Mike, Bob's your uncle. I don't really have an MMTLP Bretton Hodge update, but I listened to part of a call yesterday, and then I had to stop because I was walking through a very loud section of traffic. But I didn't really get the impression there's any massive news update. I do understand that Congress is putting pressure on. There's massive pressure at FINRA. This is going to revolutionize the markets. But to me, what's more important is how you get paid. And I have a feeling there's a train coming down the track. I'm just not sure when. Well, as long as Gensler is in quote-unquote charge, it's the gunslingers slaughtering the pioneers while the marshal dozes off in his office and talks about, how to plant tomatoes. Hey, Gary Maddle. Good afternoon to you. Okay, Mr. Crystal X, you'll get a chance to ask for questions. Mr. Inappropriate. I told you that, didn't I? Three women. One, the president of NBC. One, a really high executive at a local for-profit retirement home chain, makes good money, and the third, a well-off tennis player. Whenever they would see me, they would break into song behind me, led by one, and the rest would join in, and they would sing, Mr. Inappropriate, because I always would ask the wrong question or say the wrong thing or not be particularly dutiful. So, but they always sang it with a big smile and hugs and everything, and I don't mind people making fun. GTI Jeff, 9 attempts to break Ham's 160 wall. That's true. It's been a long time since I voted for a Democrat. Yeah, I think Gensler is totally bought by Clinton, and I think the Clintons are bought by Goldman Sachs, like the rest of the world, and I use Goldman Sachs as a stand-in for Wall Street, and it's just a shame. Yeah, Logic, Moody Waters, we can ask that question. I'll write that question down. That might be one of our questions. Logic. It's sort of a snowball. But it might be a good one to get the ball rolling. But the reason it's on a Canadian exchange was the NEO exchange offered, a couple of people offered to get Brent listed there, and it was an idea, hey, this is better than the criminality in the over-the-counter markets. Well, it turns out the NEO is just another exchange that allows defrauding of companies and investors. It was unfortunate. I don't remember the name of the 4 companies, but the offering I think it was at $3, was placed into the hands of 4, I don't know what to call them, criminals maybe in my judgment, and they just started shorting the stock and playing with the stock. The thing is, once companies go to these type of so-called Wall Street funders, they become fodder for their reindeer games and their gimmicks. And that's what happened. But anyway, they're still on the NEO exchange as well as the over-the-counter. The goal, and Brent will talk about it, the goal is to uplist and get away from it. Yeah, Big Al, lucky. Now he's asleep. He's perfectly content. Muddy Waters, no corporate action for GTII dividend. I effing knew that would happen. Well, you're right so far. I can agree with you there. Jenny L, Canaccord, Pershing, Bank of America, indirect ownership is Collins Stewart Inc. Operates on a fully disclosed basis through Goldman Sachs. See? Yeah, yo, Goldman Sachs. Sorry, Lucky is okay. Thank you. I like that, Dan A. I can do doctor. No divvy action today. I'll look one more time. Oh, sorry, Fritz Flappy Ears. You don't need it to do anything to receive the dividend. You don't have to do anything. The only caveat is the company may require that you ask IBKR to move your dividend, not your shares, your dividend, to Liberty Stock Transfer. And that should be a matter of a phone call. But I'm not sure they're going to ask you. I'm just assuming they're going to do it the same way they did with the warrant. But we'll find out. But, in fact, you don't need to do anything. You had a duck, Jenny L., and you named him Quackers? Oh, no, you named him Crackers. That's a great name. Jenny, you have to be kind to your web-footed friends. For a duck may be somebody's mother. I've got to give him CBD. All right, hear that, Lucky? You're going to be on marijuana soon. He's not interested. Finrad's going to F this up too? I don't know. I understand how you feel that way, but I'm just not sure it's the same. But it's possible. Wolfie, the real answer to your question is we don't have all the information, but based on the information we currently have, you need to own the shares of GTII tomorrow to qualify for the dividend. Zhao Li, or Jay Lee, sorry. This might be interesting, might be true too. Someone posted on Twitter that FINRA does not have a say on the distribution as long as the company files all documents correctly. That's very interesting. Jay Ingram. I'm not going to read that out loud. That'll cause too much angst, but I hear you. All right, Chris Knight, talk about GTII. You don't have to talk crap politics. Well, if we have bad actors on this, we must be getting over the target. Big Al is fine. I'm a fan of Big Al, Alabama, even though his basketball team lost. I'm a fan of Matt K too, because he's, yes, I did have a duck and he thought I was his mother. He would attack people if they came into the yard, and he would watch the, ah, that's kind of cute. If you were this Barda bus or whatever, you'd eat him. You are my shining star. Don't you go away, girl. Hey, Black Wolf. You are my shining star. All right, I'll look up Vet CBD for him, because I don't want him hurting himself. Poor guy. And he's heavy. I can't carry him. I can, but not to the vet. All right, I'll get it. All right, so I think I caught up on all the comments. We got 10 minutes to go, and we'll listen, then ask questions. I'm actually excited, so just so that you guys know, I think Logic is trading right now around 35 cents. I'll give you the quote. GTII 162.75, 321,000 shares. Hasn't traded a whit, really, since we've been on. Since you've been gone, all that's left is a band of gold of the dreams we hold. All right, so Logic's trading at 33 cents. All right, he's calling in. Let's see if he wants to talk now. Are you ready to go live, or do you need time? I'm doing good. I'm preparing everybody. I was just about to give them my targets on Logic and Go Logic, but we can talk. We can start now, or I can call you back in right at 3:30. Okay, so that's a good point. We'll start at 3:30. I'll call you right back. It'll be fine. I think the sound check will work, and everybody's looking forward to it. All right. Thanks, Brent. Bye. He's a good guy. He doesn't want to start early because in case people are signing in at 3:30, just to hear his dulcet tones. So it's Logic is 35 cents, and they have 47 million shares outstanding. I think Logic is going to go to 160 within the next 2 months. So I don't know. Let me just do the arithmetic on that. If I'm right, 160 divided by 35. It's no, that's not how you do it, right? Yeah, it should be 160 divided by 0.35. There it is. It's a 4 or 5 to 1 move from here, in my judgment, in the near term. And then Go Logic, just to give you a price on that before we start. Go Logic is 175 to 190, last trade 175, and shares outstanding are roughly the same, 48 million. And I think that stock, by the end of the year, sort of within a year, maybe a little bit, 12 months, could be $20 a share. So that sounds pretty high. So I would temper my goal and bring it down to maybe somewhat less than that. But still, many multiples of where it is right now on GOLQ. So, all right, let me see. Any word on the dividend? No. Let me look one more time. I don't think they update during the day. If there's an update, I think it's in the morning. And as of this morning, FINRA had not given its yay or nay. Someone just said on the call that there's no necessity for that. So if that's true, tomorrow the dividend becomes effective. I'm not sure that's true, though, because I thought FINRA did have to approve it. And as of right now, I don't see any entry that says that it's been approved, unless I'm missing it. Well, Crystal X, you're right about that merger, and that might be a question to ask. I was just reading it off of E-Trade Summary, but you're correct to point that out on the acquisition of Gamma Ray. So I stand corrected. That's it. That's the ticker for Logic, LGIQ, and the ticker for GOLQ is GOLQ. That's right. The inappropriate investor is right. Which stock should I purchase, GOLQ or Logic, if I could only choose one? Mario, that's a question I'll ask. My guess, we can ask Brent, but my answer would be right now I would buy Logic, because you're going to end up, if you can only choose one, you're going to end up with the Aubrey SPAC deal, which will be de-SPACed and become DLQ, and that's probably worth $1.50 a share or more out of the gates. And then you're also going to get the Shell Logic, which already, and I'm sure Brent will talk about it, already has in place an acquisition that might be worth, and that goes to why I was bringing up how many shares are outstanding of Logic. It might be worth 30 million or more to the shareholders, just that acquisition. And also Logic owns 4.5 million shares of GOLQ. So if you buy Logic now, you're going to get 2 for 1. That right there is probably 75 cents. So 150 plus 75 cents is 225. There are some slips betwixt cup and lip, but it all looks good. So that would probably be, in the short run, how I would do it. You could buy Logic, qualify for the distributions, the distribution of the SPAC, and then maybe if Logic runs up, sell it and buy GOLQ. I don't know, but we'll play that by ear. I think nothing happening on GTII is bad news for the bad guys and good news for the good guys. All right, so the OTC website is more up to date. 74 million logic issued. All right, let me repeat that, Mr. Crystal X. Thank you, Mr. Crystal X. 74 million logic shares issued and 126 million GOLQ. Thank you. Tom M., if you're asking me, am I aware of any specific situation where the DTCC had to cover that I was involved in? No, but there have been cases, and they've been in the news, where the brokerage firms and that's all the DTCC is, a consortium of all these brokers, they do have to cover. All right, so it's 3:29. I'm going to call him. We'll get.
Hey, Bill.
Hey, I'm gonna turn your volume up, and it's 3:30. So, if you're ready to go, we'll get going.
I'm ready to go. Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you all right. Maybe
Wonderful.
a little louder, but I can hear you. I don't know if you can be a little louder.
I've got the volume up as high as it'll
Okay,
go.
it should be all right.
Yeah.
All right, so
Okay.
everybody, this is Brent Son from GOLQ and Logic, and he's going to go through the agenda I posted, but rather than for me to take his time, I'll let him go. Go ahead, Brent.
Great. Thanks, Bill. And thanks, everyone, for joining. I am going to walk everyone through the current status update and then let you all ask questions that Bill will moderate. I am going to assume, and I may be incorrect here, that most of the audience is familiar enough with Logic and GOLQ, so I don't have to go in depth with a description as I did last time, which I believe took a considerable amount of time. With Logic, we are in the process of spinning off our core business into a NASDAQ-listed SPAC. Aubrey, which is on the NASDAQ, it's ASPA, Alpha Sierra Papa Alpha is the ticker symbol. And we are in our second round of SEC comments. Typically on any DSPAC, as they call it, you will see 2 to 3 rounds of comments with the SEC. We started the process late last July. It put us into the new year where we had to do our 10K audit of the spinoff, not Logic, the listed company, because the spinoff is what's going into the SPAC. So although we will be filing our 10K for Logic next Monday, that also has the cost of a public company and several other assets in there that are not going into the SPAC. So therefore, there are, in effect, 2 separate audits going on. We will finish the audit of Logic by next Monday, and we'll be filing. Within that, you'll see our numbers reflected and also what is going into the SPAC, so you'll have a good idea of where we're tracking. We've forecast on an organic basis this year about 45 to 50 million, and with M&A as high as 100 million. The valuation of the SPAC transaction is 114 million. I believe our current market cap is somewhere around 30 million. So there is a disparity between where we're currently trading and what the SPAC offer is. We would expect that to narrow as we approach the closing. And when would that closing be? We're anticipating sometime in early June, possibly mid-June, but we're still on track. After the business is spun off and goes into the SPAC, there is also an opportunity for our shareholders who will still also own shares of Logic. Right now is a time where a lot of private companies of actually very, very large size are looking for operating companies to merge into and then become the surviving business and then uplist to NASDAQ or New York Stock Exchange. We've had a number of companies approach us. We are in late stage discussions now with a company actually valued at $330 million. And revenue that supports that, and profits that support it as well. Our shareholders would receive 10% of the value of the incoming business, and would hopefully participate along the path to uplisting. On to GOLQ. I believe many of you know that we are in the New York Stock Exchange uplisting process. There are currently two points that the New York Stock Exchange has brought up to us. One is maintaining a $2 share price. That's the minimum that we're going to qualify on, and believe that we'll certainly meet that. And then secondly, I believe many of you saw the press release yesterday. It was unfortunately a bit technical. I'm going to have a follow-up call next Thursday to describe where things are and also describe the path that the business is taking. I think anyone who owns the shares now realizes that we are trading on the OTC pink sheets with an average daily volume of around 7,000 shares. That is not exactly an enviable position to be in. However, if you look at the acquisition plan that we've mapped out and that we've been announcing, and if you look at an uplisting to the New York Stock Exchange and the anticipated liquidity and profile that comes with it, along with growing a business to $15 billion in assets under management and well over $100 million in targeted revenue and profitability, that's a lot better place to be than owning shares of a $6,000 to $7,000 a day volume pink sheet company. So what I'm going to describe next week will be in depth the path that we're taking, and look for shareholder input. So I'll be taking quite a few questions and answers. So I encourage you all to join that. What I'd like to do now is hand it off to Bill Farrand to moderate any questions.
All right. Let me just check, Brent, to see if there were any questions while you were talking. They say you sound like Ham, which I take as a compliment. Okay, one question here, and I think it's regarding this for Logic, is when do you have to have shares to get this distribution?
That is dependent upon what we'll put out as a record date. So sequentially, here's where we are. I will backtrack very quickly. When you start out on a SPAC transaction, the first stage is letter of intent. Second stage is definitive merger agreement. Third is filing the S4, and then after that you have SEC comments, which take anywhere from, I think the shortest period of time we've seen is 4 months. On average, it's about 5 to 6. And then once the SEC is complete, they let you go effective. Aubrey then puts it out for vote, and that's called the redemption period. People don't actually vote against it. If they don't want to be part of the subsequent de-SPAC, as they call it, then they give up their shares and they take their funds back. So there is no voting against it on their end. On our end, we will put it up for shareholder vote. As an aside, I've already gotten verbal confirmation from 70+% of our shareholders in favor. So that takes about a week. So that's simultaneous to the redemption phase for Aubrey. During that time, we will declare a date of record. So I don't know it yet, but we will definitely give people plenty of heads up to when that happens.
Okay. Makes sense. One gentleman asks, why does Logic and obviously that might to you might seem simplistic, but to people new to the situation, why does Logic trade on the Canadian exchange, and will it continue to do so if you uplist?
That is a great question. I fell for the marketing hype from the NEO Stock Exchange back in late 2020, and we went down the road with them. We did IPO on the NEO Exchange in 2021, and much to our dissatisfaction, was just not a liquid market with any real visibility. It's a bit of a longer story to that I won't go into, but I can say that it fits into a narrative that everyone in this call is familiar with very aggressive short selling and predatory type financings. But nonetheless, going forward, we will delist from the NEO, and when the incoming business after we de-SPAC comes in, they will uplist to either NASDAQ or NYSE. Probably NYSE.
Excellent. I love hearing that. NYSE, I mean. Then we were just asked, and I'll ask it because I've been asked to ask you this, and I always forget, so I'm going to ask it now.
Sure.
Will the GOLQ shareholders continue to be silent 10% holders, so to speak, of Logic, or will I should say that the other way around, Logic shareholders be silent shareholders of 10% of GOLQ, or are you going to distribute those shares?
That's actually a great question. We will have to do something with the shares and shareholders after the de-SPAC and after the incoming business agrees to come in, because they will be the surviving business, and we will need to spin off anything within Logic to shareholders.
So it could be more than just the shares in GOLQ you might have to spin off.
Well, the other businesses that are in there are de minimis.
Okay, all right.
They are considered assets, yeah.
Okay. Somebody just asked, and again, sorry if it's repetitive, but it's a complicated story, particularly to people that aren't as familiar as you are. He asks, what happens to the shell of Logic once the assets are spun out to the Aubrey SPAC?
That's a great question. You might have missed it earlier when we started the call. Right now is a great time for shareholders of companies that have an operating business and are undergoing a transaction where that business will be exiting, because you're not a shell. But you could become one. What you ideally want to do is not be a shell, because you have to wait 1 year for an uplist. They call that seasoning. What the current management of the operating company should do is start to solicit incoming target businesses that would simultaneously come in as the business that is going out is going out. So we would not become a shell, but the incoming business would become the surviving business and become the majority shareholder. But bear in mind, if let's say, for example, the target we're looking at now would carry a $330 million market valuation. In order to stay listed on the OTCQX and then subsequently uplist to a senior exchange, current shareholders have to have 10% of that. So that's actually a great thing, because we all, as shareholders, would have 10% of the value. And then if the company is growing and the markets turn around again, which they invariably do, it could turn out to be significantly better than that.
Okay, great. Somebody is asking, I don't want to run out of our 10 questions, but I'll ask it. Somebody just asked, when will Logic be uplisted? What's the timeline? I feel like you just answered it before, but it's worth repeating.
No, it is. It is a complex story. So Logic, LGIQ is on the OTCQX in the NEO, but let's forget the NEO. So the OTCQX listing will stay. Okay, the core business, which we call data logic, is being spun off. In other words, it's going out of LGIQ and into the SPAC, ASPA, which is on NASDAQ. The management team, the business will continue on in the NASDAQ listed vehicle and will grow organically and through acquisitions. LGIQ will merge another business into it, and then that business will seek to uplist. I don't have a timeline on that, but I would say ideally most businesses coming in would seek to uplist within 6 months of the transaction closing.
Okay, and the whole, you kind of see the whole transaction becoming effective early to mid-June.
Correct. I think what we will see is everything will happen this year.
Right. Okay. This is a more. I have a question which you might say I don't want to answer, but that another gentleman had a question which ties in a little bit to mine. Mm-hmm. So I'll ask mine first, and you can say that's not a fair question, but.
Sure.
A lot of people ask me, what are your targets for if you bought Logic right now? And obviously that's going to be a 2-for-1. So kind of out of the gate, what's the value of data logic and the value of the shell logic? And then maybe what's your valuation of GoLogic? And maybe both in the short run and then, let's say, exiting this year or 12 months from now. That was my question. I'll tell you the gentleman's question, which you can tie in now or answer afterward. He asked me, which of the two, if you chose just one, would you buy right now? Logic or GoLogic?
Wow. I love that these types of questions. However,
you can't answer them.
Well, it depends on how they're answered, because you can answer them, and I think you can answer them fairly. So it is those are good questions. Okay, I would point out, and I'm sure some people know, some may not. I just recently purchased a little over 2.2 million shares of Logic stock from a previous shareholder. That was not an ideal shareholder, to put it lightly. They represented quite a large overhang in the shares that I think put a lot of pressure on the share price for the past year. But I took them out of that. And to me, I think everyone would agree, being diversified, regardless of what your role at any given company is always the right thing to do. I am not as diversified as I should be because I have bought our stock over the years. I've been doing this for 9 years, and I believe in it fully. I would not stay with it if I didn't, and I certainly wouldn't put another $250,000 into it if I didn't believe in it. But what we're seeing right now in microcaps that are tech industry specific, what we're seeing in nano cap, small caps, anything tech related, unless it's pure AI and very widely marketed, has been very, very badly hurt in the market this past year. So I see it as a twofold. I can't say that there's a specific price target, but I can answer that with some numbers in a moment. But I can say that we're down 95% in a year, and I don't think that we were overvalued a year ago. if that helps. I can also say that valuations in our sector are down. The big caps and mid caps are down about 60-70%, but I'd say that our peers are down about 90 to 95%. So we are down among those. We've seen it happen throughout history where you see peaks and troughs. We are in a trough now, and so will these stocks recover? Yes, they will. I think going back to even 50% of what the valuations were in 2021 is very doable. And you ask what are our forecasts for this year? By year end, we believe we'll be at $100 million a year annual run rate. Multiples were as high as 8x revenues. If we were at half of that, that would be 4x revenues. So that's a partial answer. And there's a lot of good acquisition targets out there that we're in front of and would love to be part of our business and be listed on NASDAQ. And you can pick them up at accretive valuations. I hope I answered the
No, I think that's good, and
okay.
I think
and
everybody.
I can attempt the GOLQ one now.
All right.
Sure. So we acquired Gamma Ray. We have announced 5 other acquisitions, one small one, and then four reasonable sized ones. We have another 10 in the pipeline, and those will be a combination of asset management companies and fintech. The fintechs are extremely exciting, and I think when you put all of these together and you look at it holistically, you go, wow, that's a great story. But what else besides just a story? What does it have? Well, we believe we'll be at $15 billion in assets under management in house, and at a run rate of about 140 million in revenues. Will be profitable. And so what would a valuation of companies in that sector look like? We'd have to take a hybrid approach on that, because traditional asset management companies trade at about 2.5x revenues, and fintech companies trade anywhere from 4 to 8 times revenues. So if you just split it down the middle and say, all right, 4x revenues, what does that put you out at? 600 million by year's end. That would imply a price per GOLQ of about $5.50 to $6.
Just before we move on, could you clarify the denominator in GOLQ and Logic? How many shares are outstanding? Maybe talk about how much of that's restricted. Because there's different numbers at different sites.
Sure. Yeah, the OTC markets is actually automatically verified with the transfer agent, and so in fact I'm going to look right now just to make sure I don't misspeak.
Good.
Logic, we currently have 74 million shares issued and outstanding of Logic, and restricted are about 40 million shares, but deposited in people's accounts at DTC are only 23.7 million shares.
So that's the float.
Correct.
Okay.
I guess since we're on the subject, the implied value of the Aubrey transaction comes out to about $1.52 per share, whereas we're currently trading at 34. And then the incoming business or another business valued at that in that range would be about another 40 cents. So the disparity in value is quite significant. I don't know if we would be trading there, or if we should be trading there, but pretty close, I'd say.
And then you'd have to add the value of the GOLQ shares on top of that.
You would.
Somebody just asked a good question, which I think might, I hope it's not repetitive, but he asks if, this is the question, so Logic will have an inherent value of 10% of the ASPA price. I'm not sure that's what you meant. I think it has 10% value of the acquisition that's been yet to be identified. But this might give you a chance to, because it is confusing. Again, it's repetitive, but it's also confusing.
Okay, sure. I can walk through again. I actually only partially answered the previous question. Let me just quickly finish.
Okay, sorry. Sorry about that.
Yeah. No problem. GoLogic has 124 million shares issued and outstanding, of which the bulk of those are in affiliate hands, meaning the acquisitions that we've made. Our float is, and what's deposited at DTC is 1,088,000 shares. So we have a rather small float.
Wow. That could be good for investors.
It could. I've, as an aside, and I did not forget the other question. As an aside, I once saw a stock go from 30 cents to $488 because they had a float of 500,000 shares. It was incredible, probably incredibly bad, but small float stocks tend to swing one way or another when there's fear or greed. I don't know if that's a good thing. I think some people it is. Nonetheless, but the answer to the other question, okay, and I don't mind going over it again. So the LGIQ has a core business called Data Logic. Data Logic is being acquired by Aubrey, which is a SPAC. So there's nothing in there but cash in a NASDAQ listing. The business in LGIQ goes into the SPAC. The SPAC issues $114 million worth of shares, or 11.4 million shares, to Logic, of which Logic distributes those to shareholders and holds them for shareholders to be distributed later. Okay. The implied value on that is roughly $1.52 per share currently. Okay. There is value. We shouldn't call it a shell because you seek to avoid shell status, meaning in a business that you acquire to become the surviving business would come in simultaneous with Data Logic going into the SPAC, thereby negating the shell status. Okay. Our shareholders maintain a 10% shareholding in that. How does that work mechanically? So we issue $300 million worth of shares to the incoming business, and our shareholders hold 30 million of the existing shares. All of those will become the float of that company, and their shares are all restricted because they are all affiliates. So if they're growing, and we will not select any targets that are not, and if they can support that valuation and subsequently a higher one as they grow, we believe that that's a good thing for shareholders. And I'll tell you, it is selfish because at that point I will be a shareholder as well, and my shares will be part of the float.
And just to finish the thought, you said $1.50 at the
is the implied value
of the SPAC. The implied value of the Logic side, you don't know for sure yet, but it's probably 40 cents. Yep. Okay.
Correct.
No less than 40 cents. So right now you're buying at 35 cents for, and if you add in the value of GoLogic shares, I don't know, a guesstimate value of $2 you're paying 35 cents for right now. I wanted to ask you if you can repeat for everyone. I don't have access to my data here. The symbol for the Aubrey SPAC, But why the Aubrey SPAC, if I remember, is trading at a bit of a premium to this distribution? Is there a reason for that, or is it, or do I have it backwards?
Okay, so typically when a SPAC IPOs, they price them at around $10 per share.
Right.
The float is comprised of people who participated in the IPO, and
Yep.
then shares that are owned by investors who put the cash in for the anticipated acquisition target. Generally, you see very small floats on SPACs. I believe the Aubrey SPAC float right now is about 500,000 shares.
Okay.
So sometimes they can trade at a big premium to the $10 price. We've seen that before. I think one of the first ones that gained notoriety back in 2020 was DraftKings, which traded up to, I think, $40 or $50. There have been others. A number of them have traded up, and then a number of them that were very overvalued traded down significantly, only because they had very large floats, and the without being too technical, the share price traded down because the valuation was well overinflated in the market. So these were companies that acquired businesses with no revenues or very little revenues. That's happened with biotech businesses. It's happened with some AI businesses, some clean tech ones. But it's been tough out there for the past year. But we're starting to see some D-SPACs that are trading up on the D-SPAC, and some are staying flat. But I think the real key, Bill, and to the audience, is look at what's coming in and look at their plan for growth, and look at where valuations are, because in what will happen is on the D-SPAC, we will be compared to other companies in our industry on NASDAQ, not on the OTC.
So I have, I think, 3 questions left. One is mine, which is very general. One is specific, and I'm not sure you addressed it, but it was in the press release yesterday, and it might be something that you discuss next week. GOLQ, to the people that receive distributions, are those shares going to be unlocked? That's how Kyle Pemberton asked the question. Will those shares be unlocked this year? I'll say that question. Another gentleman, Ken Myers, asks, can you carry a short position of Logic into the Aubrey SPAC? And then my question I'll throw out, because maybe these will be the end of our questions, is just to give you a general opportunity to discuss what I consider fortunate opportunity that you have in both companies, all 3 companies, to acquire management teams and booming businesses that want to go public. And because there's such a dearth of IPOs, all 3 of these companies become great growth vehicles. So those, I think, will be the last 3 questions. Sure.
That was a lot. Okay, so let me address the first one. So on GOLQ, yes, this year. Currently, they are I'm the reason I wanted to put out a press release yesterday. I'm going to have a call next week. I'm having the call with you guys, and I will have a call every week if need be. What is paramount to shareholders is owning something with liquidity that is not going to collapse if you sell 1,000 shares. With a small float, and this is the exact inverse of what I was describing earlier about that stock I saw go up so much before. If we made all of the shares free trading today, we would probably trade to zero faster than any stock in history. So now, don't get scared off. Okay, that is very solvable. Okay, we filed an S3 last week. I've gone ahead and said that we're in the NYSE American Exchange listing process. Okay, I was not going to announce that before, but I think it was kind of obvious because I don't say NASDAQ. We have an investment bank engaged. I haven't told anyone who it is, but they are retail only. They have committed and they have signed on to do stock only, no warrants, no structured finance on the uplisting in a small amount. And I will keep a very open channel of communications with shareholders. In fact, I've gotten verbal or email commitment from, I think, somewhere around 400 shareholders, which represents about 70% of the shares issued and outstanding, that they want to see us uplist before requesting to free up their shares. I mean, otherwise, I mean, the perception of that is not good, right? And then secondly, it just doesn't make any sense from a rational perspective. So I think the anticipated path is to let us uplist, complete the acquisitions, and we've already announced 5 of them that are in various stages, and let us get some liquidity in here, and then we will endeavor to free up shares and let people get liquidity and realize the financial gains that they want.
Great. And
yeah, I hope I answered that fairly. And then
yep.
The second part was,
can you carry a short into
Aubrey? Okay, that's a good question. You could, but I wouldn't advise it, because what happens is when we get the shares of Aubrey, we have to distribute those as a dividend. And so anyone short, if they're naked short, they're not going to be able to deliver that. So if there's a big naked short position, they would be forced to cover. You can't create that dividend unless you go buy Aubrey, and that's what's the point, right? It makes more sense to just either cover your short or not be short in the first place.
And there is a naked short. We don't know the size, but
I'm going to agree with you on that, Bill, because the type of trading we've seen is suspicious at best. I'm not much of a conspiracy theorist, but I unfortunately do watch the trading of our stock, and when you see offers flashing in real time, that is not normal trading, and there's no arbitrage going on between the NEO and the OTC. And even on big volume days that we've had, you don't see the same going on in the NEO. So I wouldn't say there's an arbitrage of currencies. I think that there really are algorithms that are auto trading our stock, and there are also market makers and smaller hedge funds that are taking advantage of that and putting the pressure on.
So the last thing, and I really, you've been terrific, and I'm getting a lot of positive feedback as you speak, and you're always welcome on here. We'll go out of our way to communicate and expand your audience. But the last part is just how exciting it is that a talented deal maker, knowledgeable with contacts like yourself, is at the right place at the right time for all 3 companies, having access to excellent deal flow. When the IPO market is silent, you become an alternative, as you put it, for accretive, in other words, non-dilutive growing acquisitions. And maybe you can talk about that opportunity if you want to, and anything else you want to say. And we won't take more of your time.
Sure. Okay. No, that's a great point. Some of the deal flow that we've seen, and I wouldn't say I'm a talented deal maker. I have worked in and around a lot of very, 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 very large acquisitions over the past 35 years, and I would say that right now, out of 35 years, is probably the best deal flow that I've ever seen. Because you're right, there's a dearth of IPOs, but there are a lot of really, really great companies out there that wanted to IPO or go into SPACs this past 2 years, and they can't get out the gates. And so their alternatives are going public through through an OTC vehicle like ours. And what's interesting, Bill, is that some of the companies we've spoken with have bankers like Morgan Stanley and Lazard, Goldman Sachs. Not that I'm a fan of those, but traditionally, those firms would not look at an OTC listing and then subsequent uplisting. They generally frown upon that. But the companies we've spoken with have bankers who are exactly those candidates, and they're all for it because it's easy for them to uplist the business, right? But they can't IPO it. Right. And so going into LGIQ and then having us having our shareholders as their public float and satisfying all the requirements of an exchange is all doable. And then their banker will do the uplisting. So yeah, right now is the best time I've seen for deal flow in 35 years.
Tremendous. Absolutely tremendous. If there's anything else you want to add, if you want to mention any Twitter or other channels that people should follow you on, or re-emphasize the call you're going to have next week, please do. But otherwise, we can... Somebody just asked a question. Are there any issues with the SPACs now that SEC is cracking down on them? I don't think that applies here, so you can talk to that if you want. But anyway, just I guess take your bow and say what you wish as you want to end the call.
Sure. Well, I will cover that real quick. They are right. There were issues a year and a half ago. There was additional scrutiny of SPACs, which put a big damper on the market. But we've come out of that, and what we've seen recently is that the SEC is spending time on them, but not an unfair amount. And I think the scrutiny was warranted because there were some deals that were quite messy. But I think that as they say, a little bit of sunshine is a good thing. As far as other social media channels, I don't have any other ones.
Okay.
I don't have the time, but I like yours. And Chris LaCourcier is great. I'm biased because he's become a friend over the years. But I would just encourage everyone to look at the announcements we've had, look at valuations in general, and then look at what the implied value is for us, and make a decision. I think a lot of goodness can come of that.
Well, I think there was one gentleman here asking why is it taking 7 months? But I don't think you need to answer that unless you want to. But you can. Otherwise, we thank you very, very much, Brent, and we will have more opportunities where you can talk to everybody.
Oh, sure. Well, actually, the average time is about 7 to 9 months, so we're not out of the woods.
Perfect answer.
So, yeah. Anyway, well, thanks to everyone. I appreciate you guys having me, and to the audience, thanks for supporting us if you're shareholders, and thanks for considering us if you are thinking about becoming one.
You're the best. Thank you, Brent.
Great. Thanks, guys.
Cheers.
Bye.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
All right. Well, up Soft 88, if you miss 2/3 of this, it'll be available and you can just spin backwards. Let's just look where everything closed. Thank you for listening. I think that's great. I would also add, on top of Chris LaCourcier, that you could listen to or Twitter Twitter listen to Small Cap Investing, a very good source of information on many stories, but Logic and GOLQ as well. That's the handle. That's his handle. Logic is closing at 32 cents. Well, no. It closed at 35 cents, up a penny. Somebody just traded a tiny bit in the aftermarket. They're so nasty. GOLQ traded up 10 cents at $1.90. And then let's look at GTII. GTII closed at 165, up 7 cents. Very little volume today in terms of when I signed on and to now. It's 355,000. I think it was like, I should have written it down. I think it was 320,000 when I signed on. So very little volume. And let's just look at VOCL since he had a conference call. He was effective. It's up 2 cents, up 25% at almost 14 cents a share, 0.1398 on 161,000 shares. So how can you follow? Brent's not on Twitter. So the best way to follow CPO Sharkey, the best place to follow information on GOLQ and LGIQ. I'll show you two of them if I can find them quickly. Here's one. Small Cap Investing. I recommend that. Small Cap Investing. He's excellent. And then let me just see if I have it here. I just have to pull it up. Yep, I have it right there. Chris Lecoisier is another one that you could follow. Both of these guys follow very closely LGIQ and GOLQ, and they speak with frequency with Brent. So, but Brent himself is not on the Twitter feeds. So, well, Robert, I'm going to end this pretty quickly. Maybe, let's say at 4:30. So that's another 15 minutes. The reason I'm going to do that is so that afterwards I can post it for Logic and GOLQ. It's a little longer probably than perfect, but the call with Brent started about 45 minutes ago, so you can return. We talked about other things. The call itself started about an hour and 45 minutes ago, approximately 2:30. I can't remember exactly. Just before 2:30. I think it was 2:22 now that I'm talking. So anyway, we talked about some other things, but we also mostly talked about Logic and GOLQ. I don't know what happened with MMAT. Let me look at it. Are they doing an offering? Yeah, down. They're not down that much. It's 38 cents. I don't know if they're doing that. You just wrote that. I don't know if they're doing an offering. Oh, there is a public offering. They just announced today. Tends to offer shares of its common stock and warrants to purchase shares of common in a public offering. 30-day option to acquire additional 15% of the shares. Ladenburg Tallman, they're a good company. They used to be. They're not criminals like some of these others at all, to my memory. Well, Alliance Global Partners, call me skeptical on them. They're going to be joint book running managers. Cormark Securities is expected to be participating. I'll have to look into these. Meta, it doesn't say how many shares. But let me just address your point. I don't know, I don't have much of a dog in the hunt with MMAT. But your point that there's dilution and the stock's going down, that doesn't necessarily have to be true. If this is a well-placed offering and it's not an offering in tranches and organized by criminals who are just shorting the stock and giving the money to the company and then continue to destroy the company, like Jeff Easton, Benchmark Securities, and Kurt Kramer, in the companies I know about. I don't know what else they do in the world. And in my judgment, this doesn't have to be like that. Offerings can be quite successful. When an offering raises enough money that management can get on about doing what they do, and they can fund a year or 2 years of their growth, offerings can cause stock prices to jump. And that's what used to happen when we had honest markets. An offering like this would be announced and the stock would go up. So I don't take your point that, this is going to be bad news necessarily. I think Ladenburg Thalmann is a good firm. I will check into what the terms of the deals are. I'm a little concerned by this Alliance Global Partners because they were the front to a deal that just killed another stock. And to my memory, as I'm speaking to you, I think that was CLNV. I am admitting I'm relying on my memory, but I'll look into that. So that's on the negative side if I'm right, but let me look into that. But I don't see this just ipso facto as being bad. Thank you, Black Wolf. Robert says, from what I have seen, it isn't a good offering. It sounds like the CEO is bleeding the company. All right, I trust you, Robert. I've come to rely on some of the things you've said. So, all right, let me look it up. Yeah, I know Mark Maddox. I agree. And Robert, I think my reaction is, I agree with you. I don't like seeing the name Alliance Global Partners. I just don't see it. It's just a bunch of smiling faces in the front for the criminal short sellers. My judgment. But I'll look a little into it a little further. I could be wrong. Ladenburg, unfortunately, I'm an old guy now, but we used to have prospecti. Prospecta. Anyway, we had prospectuses, and you had the lead or the co-lead, and then you had the other participating firms. And this was a good firm. But that was back when brokers could talk about stocks. They could play stocks. Now brokers, wealth advisors, just put your money into managed accounts. And I don't know. So let me look into it. It may have changed over the years, because I'm talking many, many years ago. And this might be just a shell of their former self. So what I would be concerned with, since Alliance Global Partners is part of the joint book running group, they use these terms like they used to, but Alliance could simply be a front for, MMAT was higher. just 4 or 5 months ago, and it's been just shorted down. And now Alliance is a front for those criminals. And since the company will issue shares, they can cross that, and the shorts wash their hands. They lift that profit from you, basically. And it's just I don't know what word to use that's polite, but it's a chitty bang bang situation. It's not good. And Goldman loves it. Ken Griffin just gave $80 billion or something to Harvard. He loves it. Mike, Cohen loves it. And, everyone loves it. But it's all crime. It's all crime. I was showing you before this example using Grandma Kelly, but in general, the leverage in this market is so massive because they've expanded the assets fraudulently, and they're collecting fees, they're collecting commissions, they're collecting stock loan on that. So it's not going to be able to stand, and it's quite frightening. Wow, Robert Shigano, Wells Fargo not allowing any shorting in GTII. That, Sugano, that is amazing, Robert. $300 million to Harvard. Gets his name on the building. I hope it's the lavatory, all the men's rooms on campus, instead of being the... When I was in London, I was invited very kindly to the Queen's Guards, the polo matches, but there were these wonderful lavatories you could go into, and sure enough, you'd go in, and because everyone had to pee, you'd have to use different rooms. You come in, and it's the crapper. It's built by the crapper. I hope all the crappers are named after Ken Griffin. Oh, you can't buy. It's restricted. Well, these are signs, Robert, of trouble. And let's see, 5 more minutes before I'm going to hang up. I don't know, 22J Dog. You're right, maybe not, but I'm going to agree with Robert that Alliance Global is, I believe, and it's by memory. It's by memory that I want to say it was CLNV. I could be wrong. Might have been COSM. But one of these companies that were supposedly in a uplift, they short-circuited by doing a deal with that group. No dollar averaging from Wells. That's interesting. Thank you, Jenny Rebecca. 4 days old. How do you see the world? Jenny Rebecca is one of your most stalwart and hardest working and supportive shareholders, advocates. Remember her name. Remember her name. Someday, Wes Christian is going to call her up and say, I need you working beside me. Anyway, all right, 3 more minutes for any pressing question. I'm not trying to be rude. I'm just going to end it so that this is a somewhat concise video that can be replayed by people. They can fast forward at the beginning and they can fast forward through the end, but they can come on, because I don't know how to edit it. They can come on and talk to, listen to Brent speak about logic and GOLQ. Wells, Robert Sugano says, Wells says GTI is a cryptocurrency or affiliated. No one really knows. It's just so, it's funny. All right, Jenny Rebecca L. We'll all collectively get there. But how can you worry when such a gorgeous day? Remember, as Graham Hancock says, we should all be thankful. I quote him. I'm sure other people have said it, but I heard it first from him years ago. But we should all be thankful to be born on such a blue planet. You know, I think it was Nabokov. I think he wrote Lolita, but he was also a Russian poet. And he wrote that the earth, our life, is like sitting on a branch in the darkness where, I forget if he said a bird or a butterfly. And that's what it is. Where we have this life around us that's friendly mostly toward us. Blue skies, green trees, friendly animals, and God to love the people we can't. And there's a lot to be thankful for. I will thank Ham, Zachariah. Oh, Zachariah, is the GTII special dividend like an NFT? Zachariah, the dividend issued as a restricted shares, one restricted share for 10 shares. Honest answer is I don't know. But it looks like it's simply going to be a special dividend distributed to you. I believe it will be similar to the special dividend of the warrant, where it's as simple as calling your brokerage firm and having your special dividend distributed to Liberty Stock Transfer. However, that may not happen at all. It may just be you get the dividend distributed to you in your account, and we see what happens. The reason I don't know, Zachariah, is it hasn't been announced yet. What's the mechanism? But your question about the NFT or the coin or the blockchain dividend, I think it will be the distribution of a percentage of the West Christian lawsuit. That's a separate item, and it hasn't been, one, defined yet, two, a record date hasn't been created, and it really hasn't been announced. It's been discussed. The other dividend has been announced. That's the time where I expect the distribution to be a blockchain event on Upstream. It could be an NFT, you're right. Or it could be some other similar blockchain item, but it could be an NFT. But that's not the dividend we're talking about right now. That's the best I know, Zachariah. You will probably just be able to hold it, Zachariah. We'll know more when the company makes the announcement. Woody, thank you. I agree with you. All right, CPO Sharkley, thank you. Derek, that's sweet. I'm grateful for you. I'm actually grateful for all of you guys, because I have a bit of Churchill's black dog sometimes, and I find each and every one of you quite uplifting, even the naysayers, because they don't scare me. When will this squeeze? I have no idea. All right, guys, all right, I don't see any new questions. So 4:33, we'll call it there. And I wish each of you a blessed evening and peace, love, and happiness. More will be revealed. Ciao. By the way, Djokovic lost today. But it's the start of the clay court season. We'll see if he can gear up and peak at the French Open. Thank you, ZZ Top, ZZZ 418. We'll be all right, and we'll talk to you all tomorrow. Catch you on the flip side.